The oldest and strongest emotion of mankind is fear, and the oldest and strongest kind of fear is fear of the unknown. H.P. Lovecraft. Everyone fears something. Fear is built into us, and if you are really lucky, it will not consume you. There is a niggle at the back of your brain, reminding you not to hang your legs off the bed, not to look behind you as you run up the stairs at night after turning off the light. When passing a mirror, you hope that it was only your reflection you could see. That inch of movement you think you've seen from the corner of your eye. That blood-run cold feeling you get for no reason. That is fear. Welcome to a look into the unknown, where fear is always on the cards. Welcome to Paranormal Patter.
Good evening, all you weird and wonderful people. It is Friday night, and we are back with some Paranormal Patter. It feels like we've not done one of these in ages, but it actually wasn't that long ago. That's the life of a podcaster, right?
It feels like if you're not doing one
you guys have been busy, I've not.
So if you're not doing one every few days, you know what I mean?
Aye, for sure. I'm looking forward to this. This is the time where we chat about the A75. A road that I probably have been on. You guys been on the A75?
I have, yes, quite a few times.
Most likely at some point. I can't think of a reason for having been there, but I'm pretty sure I have. Can you guys hear me okay, by the way?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. Michaela Manzarkova says, "Hey guys, no matter how many times I hear that intro, I always get the shivers." Perfectly done, right, Kieran?
Because of Kieran's lovely tones.
I do try.
See, Matthewman himself says, "Evening, gents. Let's get paranormal." Absolutely. Let's inject it right in your veins. I was kind of saying a little bit about how we thought that this was rich in some paranormal history, which it might be, but we're going to kind of discover that. We'll see if there's any actual meat on the bones. Before we do crack on with this episode, though, I would like to bring I'd be the bearer of bad news, sad news, actually. Our former podcast guest, John Edmonds, has passed away. There will be like a wee online memorial for him in April. If you guys are followers of John, you can go ahead and find that. You'll know where to find it. Don't need to tell you. John was a sweet, kind, caring guy. He was so nice, and he gave us our time. He gave us one of our best episodes as well.
Absolutely. He might look like Jake the Snake, but he's a nice guy.
Jake the Snake's also a nice guy. I think it's a real shame. We kind of semi kept in touch via email, and I know he had some bad health, and sadly is no longer with us. But he'll forever be etched. He's a brick in the wall of the Jibber Jabber podcast, and a very gleaming brick at that. Whether or not you believed his stories, he was still a very entertaining guy, sweet guy, and just it's a shame that he's crossed over. So rest in peace, John Edmonds.
Yeah.
Here's to John. I've got a fake glass to John.
I'll make up for it for the biggest glass in the world.
I've got that same glass. I should fill it.
Imagine drinking a glass of water that size at this time of night is just a recipe for midnight teas.
That's just a take how old you are, Jimmy. That's the thing.
Exactly.
My young bladder can still handle that.
Well,
I drinking Dark Island.
Yeah, I've never actually had it before. The reason I bought it is I thought, right, I'm doing the paranormal part tonight. I'm going to try and find a beer that's got a kind of bit of an ominous name to it, and I'll just drink it on the show. So I'd never heard of it before. I've just taken my first ever sip, and I'm not sure how I feel about it yet. Hang on.
It's my favourite brewery. Orkney Brewery is my favourite brewery, and it's just awesome.
Don't get me wrong. I actually thought it was going to be rank, because I'm not normally a fan of beers that are described as chocolatey. But it's actually really quite tasty. It's not as heavy as I thought it was going to be. This is a nice little drink. This episode is brought to you by Dark Island.
Coming soon, a beer podcast called The Beer Bros by J Mac and Kieran.
Just be an hour of me like this.
So it's essentially just the podcast. I'm just kidding.
It does, man. It does. It's not the same glass. I've just bought a bigger one every time.
I see Matthewman says, swear the glass gets bigger every week. That's funny. That'd be really cool. It'd be like a Naked Gun sketch. So,
at some point we should get it to hand it up to you, and it's even bigger.
we'll do that next week. Next Paranormal Patter, right? So the A75 is apparently one of the most haunted highways in Scotland, and it is rich with its history. They say that, but upon my research, I've struggled to find more than like 3 stories. And one of the main stories, I've teamed up with other content creators to create this little bit of context for y'all to kind of give you a lowdown on the most notable story on the A75. Here it is.
Late one dark night in 1962, a lorry drives through the east of Dumfries and Galloway along a 15-mile stretch of the A75, is known as the Kinmount Strait. Oh, it may have been an ordinary day for the 2 lorry drivers, but it would not be an ordinary night. Suddenly, out of nowhere, a large hen comes flying through the sky, heading straight for impact with their windscreen. But just as it should have struck the glass, the hen disappeared. But the ghostly hen wasn't alone. If the drivers weren't terrified enough already, they then saw a mysterious van swerving crazily across the road, and a menagerie of other ghostly animals appearing and disappearing without explanation. The A75 has since become known as one of Scotland's most haunted roads. Travellers choosing to brave this route have reported seeing screaming hags and phantom horses and carriages, gruesome creatures and even extraterrestrial beings. Some have even been said to witness parades of ghostly beings crossing the road. Are you brave enough to drive along Scotland's ghost road at night?
I've got to hand you that one.
That was fantastic.
Some Matthewman work there, and as everywhere, you see it everywhere here. Definitely go and check him out at Matthewman 2 T's on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. You basically see all his work all over this show.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever told you this before, and there's maybe good reason that I've never told you this before, but I hate the image of old creepy women, right? I always have. So when that wee thing popped in, like the wee toasty guy from Mortal Kombat, I wasn't happy.
Oh man!
I have to actually point out something. See, listening to us talk, blah blah, back and forward, it sounds completely normal. So when you hear an overzealous Scottish accent on a video, we sound awful.
Yes,
absolutely awful.
It's like, 2 truck drivers were out one night. It's like, calm down, hen. Your favourite show.
So there have been several sightings, but let's kind of dissect this one a little bit, okay?
Absolutely.
So a truck driver was driving along the A75, sorry, and sees a hen that is just about to twat off his windscreen and disappears.
Isn't that just called flying over the car?
Yeah, I mean, could it be very possible that it was a real hen?
Well, I mean,
maybe.
Kieran, you and I are both drivers. I mean, how often do you think you've hit an animal and then you check your rear view mirror and it's absolutely fine?
Oh,
it's like you could swear.
Almost once a week, you'll almost hit something. A bird.
I've stopped even hitting the brakes now. Terrible. But honestly, man, if it's a rabbit staring at my headlights, I'm just like, mate, I hope you had a good life.
My wife nearly hit a junkie, and I was all for it. I was like, he's not watching where he was going. He just kept going, and then she beeped. She's like, right, and then I rolled the window down to like proper lean out and give him grief. But then I realized he wasn't there. I was like, so even if I say anything, like it's just not going to compute. So I was like, that's no point. I'm
All right.
not gonna,
So he was
I'm not
physically
gonna get
there,
a
but
fight.
not all there. There.
He was just walking across the road.
Is he one of
Just
the
hadn't met a
spice,
phantom junkie.
a spice sorbet or something? You know, type.
Oh, he was just proper like Jake Ball. Imagine Pete the Jakey just walking across the road, just unaware of life passing him by. So,
I wish you had said something to him so he could turn around and say, "Your mission, should you choose to accept it." Maggie, ring. Maggie, stinky, stanky, ring.
I'd have screamed. So that was closest to a paranormal happening on the road that I've had. I would like us to check this A75 out at night, but the reality of it is we'd go there and absolutely nothing would happen, because it doesn't seem that there's a lot of
I'd maybe be half tempted to do it once I get an electric car and it doesn't cost me £56,000 to get down to the borders.
Yeah. Though the thing is, with sightings like this, usually if you go into something like Facebook or social media and you type in A75 haunting or ghost, right, just a couple keywords, that'll bring up, like, for example, if there's a drain burst in a street, what'll happen is people will talk about it, and you type in drain burst wherever you're from, and you'll see several people taking pictures. Then avoid this street, blah blah. Mm-hmm. Now you would think it'd be the same with people being haunted. Like, avoid the A75. Just saw a mad ghost chicken near burst my windscreen, or did it? You know what I mean?
Aye.
That's another T-shirt. Just seen a mad ghost chicken.
may have not burst my windscreen. So I don't know. What do you guys think of this story?
It's not this part of the story that kind of confuses me. It's the aftermath. Like, it's not the chicken or the hen part. Given the fact that it's a rural area, that's probably quite likely. And then you get the old hags and all the numerous animals, apparently a turtle, a sloth, and what was the other thing you put up?
A turtle, a sloth, and I can't even mind.
And him.
It's me. I think there was two versions of me there, wasn't there?
There was, aye.
I think that's the bit that gets me. Is that it's not necessarily the hen thing, it's the aftermath of like the old hags and stuff. That either makes it seem really drawn out or is one of the coolest paranormal stories ever.
Well,
and that's the thing. Just on the note of the hen thing, like, I mean, I've been driving for a lot of years, and I've had near misses with a lot of different types of birds. Yeah. Chickens has never been one of them.
No, pheasant, yes.
Like, I've maybe been driving through Glasgow and somebody's chucked a bit of KFC, and I've maybe came close to that, but a live chicken, nah. It's not a common occurrence. The fact that a chicken was flying is pretty paranormal in itself.
Given the fact that chickens don't fly very often.
So it was a hen, though, right? And hens fly?
A chicken.
So a hen is a chicken, right?
Yeah, it is, Kevin.
That's a female chicken, aye.
This is Kieran's wheelhouse.
A hen is definitely a female chicken. I don't think that's my house. That's nursery level house.
What are you teaching?
Wasn't it a chicken? Wasn't it a chicken? It was a hen.
Aye, so it was a female one. Did he go getting the genders? Can he?
There's no cock involved in this. It was just a hen.
Don't be misgendering anything on this show, right?
It's all right. Chickens don't do sports.
Near the hens. I'm looking, but thing is, I don't know. I can't say I've ever seen a chicken or a hen or any kind of flying wee thing that looks like poultry on a road, but it doesn't mean to say it doesn't happen, right?
Well, the thing is, closest to that would probably be pheasant, and along that road there will be pheasant or grouse. Maybe not grouse, pheasant. There will 100% be pheasant.
Yeah,
but they look.
And they're quite chicken coloured. They're chicken coloured.
Yeah,
and if you're driving on the road at night in the dark, your brain might tell you
colorations.
Your brain might tell you, I think that was a chicken.
That might have been a chicken. Either that or a guy was hungry. One of the two.
Well, if we go back a couple, it was maybe last year, and we had on Dr. Peter McHugh, and he spoke about the A75, and he said there's some crazy mad woman that had and then she disappeared. Did she not hang herself or something as well? Right there. All right, and this guy,
Apparently, aye.
he wrote a book on Britain's most haunted, and you guys should go check it out. You can buy it on Kindle for like £3 or buy the hardcover. I think it's like a £5 on Amazon or whatever, right? You can get it everywhere. Britain's Most Haunted Roads, Britain's Most Haunted Forests. Really good books by Dr. Peter McGee. Now, when he came on, he'd written these books about investigating the paranormal. And we're like, so it's paranormal then? He's like, probably no. It's like, what? He's like, I mean, I just can't see it. Like a woman in a white dress with no eyes, just eye sockets running up and screaming at you. Like, what purpose does that serve? So I don't know. Here's the question from both of y'all, right? Because we all do our own research. And from your findings, did you hear of any? Because usually when we got ghosts kicking about an area, they were usually done in there or something, right? Smashed, and it was always quite gruesome. So was there anything like that on the A75? I know the history goes way back, but did you guys find anything that J-Mac, I think you're going to say something first. So
the only thing that I can say that I seen that stood out was the fact that there's been a lot of fatalities on the road just through drivers and driver error. Is that something that could lead to paranormal activity? Absolutely, if you believe in it. Is that the cause for the chicken and the hag and the goat and the dogs and the cats? And you know, it's I don't know, man. The guy might have had all the animals in the car and ploughed into a truck. I don't know.
So that's the on that. That's the thing is that this came off of the Scottish Government website, the statistics for the road. Since
of course, you looked that up. Brilliant.
I'm a sad sack. I can't help it. Since 1979, right? This doesn't quite add up because the original or the storyline thing goes back to the I think it was 60s, late 50s, 60s, something like that was the first time. But since 79, there's been 177 fatal crashes, totaling 214 fatalities.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
Is that high for like an average stretch of road of that length?
I don't know, because it is a long road. That's the thing. It's a long country road, so probably not. I think it's just the fact that it's tied with these stories probably doesn't help.
I think one thing you need to bear in mind is like 1979 doesn't sound that long ago, but it is now, unfortunately.
That's the thing, it is, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's like 43 years. It's quite a long time. 200 deaths. Take an average of that. How many is that a year? Like 5?
Yeah, 6.5, I think, roughly, something like that.
So that's really not that much.
No.
It's funny how scary a statistics can look until you pull it apart.
No.
Also, trying to say the word statistic is pretty difficult for me sometimes. I don't know why.
I don't know. I mean, it does seem like quite a high fatality on a single road, but I know, is it A90? The one that goes up towards that's an awful road as well. So, and as far as I know, that's not haunted.
Nah, I've not heard anything about it. Actually, a guy I went to school with, both his parents died in a crash on that road.
Do you tell, or can you?
I don't really know anything more than that. I just know that they both died in a car crash on that road.
That sucks.
How many deaths were chickens though? 208.
Well, do you know what? Just as you were saying there, I thought to myself, why did the chicken cross the road? It didn't. Chickens must be known for crossing roads, right? Because where would the old joke come from? Why did the chicken cross the road?
I don't know. I've never seen a chicken crossing the road. I've never seen a farmer herding chickens.
But even then, that's not like, I don't even think that's a UK-based joke.
Is it?
I think we stole that for across the pond, like Americans thing, because it's more to do with like high-end arable farmland. Sure it is.
Okay.
It probably is. I'm taking you.
Do you know what? Give me 2 minutes. I'm going to walk.
So I don't know. I think that it sounds like a high number, but over the amount of time it's been since then, I don't think it's as crazy as it seems. There's probably more fatalities on your average motorway in that amount of time. Obviously, higher volume of cars, stuff like that. Don't really hear about many haunted motorways. I don't know. I think there's something about driving on a country road in the dark. I mean, when you're on a country road in the dark, it is like country dark. Do you know? There's a difference between town dark and country dark.
Let me
Country
tell you
dark
something.
is effing dark.
Well, let me tell you something, right? So where I used to live, I used to have to walk through a graveyard, right, to get from where I was to where I was going, which was from my house to a friend's house. And I would walk this graveyard in the pitch black. Sometimes even it looks foggy. And I'm walking through this graveyard, and you know that way where the moon's light, so even though there's no lights in it, you can still see the shine off the gravestones and stuff. And I must have done that for about,
dark light.
yeah. I must have done that for about 10 years. Never seen a thing. Right? That was terrifying, right? But I became so used to it that it was actually more peaceful to do that than it was to walk the streets at that time of night. And I kind of hoped to see stuff, right? I was actually just trotting along myself, right? Looking around, and if anything, it was just so peaceful. And that's why I think sometimes when you go to scary places or you're walking down these highways, right, and it's all woodland and I don't know, I just don't think it's going to happen, you know?
I mean, graveyards themselves, I mean, you're more likely to catch somebody having a wee cheeky ride than a ghost.
Never seen any of that either.
No, apparently that's a thing. Amongst, or it certainly used to be.
Can vouch for the golf community. It's a thing. Not personally. I know some people.
All these broken gravestones, it gets blamed on vandals, and it's just been a couple of goths having a cheeky shag.
Funnily enough, do you know where the biggest one in Edinburgh is?
Greyfriars.
What?
Aye.
Really?
Yeah.
What's bloody George Mackenzie raging for then?
Maybe that's why, to be honest. That's
surely
probably
no.
why.
I
Also,
mean, how long's it been?
Quite also, I'm just going to plug my own random fact and knowledge and say I was completely right. Yep, the riddle first appeared in 1847 on an edition of the Knickerbocker and the New York City Monthly Magazine. It's an American joke. Don't ask me how I know that. I just did.
Well, anybody tuning in right now has just found out why chickens cross the road or where that came from. And we're supposed to be talking about the A75.
Well, nothing but an educational podcast.
I mean, that's where I get all my facts. So there have been a few other stories about this road. None that, for me, that I kind of found that interesting. Grave Doggers says, see Matthewman. That there again. It's an animated T-shirt.
Aye, that'd be an excellent version of the big monster truck Gravedigger. It's just a slightly dirtier version.
J-Mac, you said that you had kind of found a story about the Ferguson brothers. Do you wish to share?
Yes, I'll go through this now. I have all of my notes presently. Right, ready for this one. So this one takes place in the year 1963. And it's the Ferguson brothers, Derek, who was 22, and Norman, who was 14 at the time. They'd been traveling around Scotland in their dad's car, and they were heading home. They stopped for petrol on the way back. They were only about 15 miles from Annan, which was where they stayed. And then guess what happened? What was the first thing that happened?
Saw a chicken.
They saw a chicken.
No way. I was just saying that to be funny.
They saw a chicken. The chicken came, mate. Suddenly a large chicken flew at the wind.
It's not just a chicken.
No, it's a large chicken. This isn't a free range chicken. This is a factory farmed, stuffed to the gills, pumped full of water, large chicken.
Oh, no.
That comes and hits the windscreen. Now, when that happens, Derek kind of swerves a bit because obviously he got a fright, but it disappeared again. It's just gone poof in the wind, right? And then he sees the old shrieking woman, the hag, running at the car, flailing her arms a bit. You know what I mean? It's a terrifying image, right? It really is a horrible image. So she's screaming and running towards the car, probably because they ran out of her pet chicken, Percy. And apparently she disappeared into thin air as well, just as they were about to hit her, right? Now, I'm just starting to question our Derek's driving ability at this point. He seems to want to swerve to miss things and always is about to hit them when they disappear. So I've got some problems with his driving. So she just disappears. Then we get loads of other things coming out the woodwork. We've got dog, cats, goats showed up. Then an old screaming guy shows up. This is probably old Morag's husband, just gone mental at her for leaving the farm gate open, right? But Derek thinks this is all paranormal because again he swerves to try and miss, and he nearly hits him and all. And they'll just disappear. They just keep disappearing, right? Excuse me. My throat's still playing a bit of silly buggers with me. It's kind of starting to do my head in.
If you see a chicken run,
I've never seen Chicken Run.
You should. It's a good movie.
Yeah. Michaela says, any chance Chicken Run was filmed near there?
Yes, Chicken Run. So all these things are appearing. Again, he's swerving all over the place, trying to miss them. Sounds to me like he's trying to hit them because they all disappear just as they're about to get mashed. So at this point, Big Deke's like, I think I'm starting to lose the tatty here. So he has a wee glance over at Norman, and Norman's got like this terrified look in his face, like he's shat the passenger seat. Do you know what I mean? So Derek just assumes, oh, he must be seeing this as well. Instead of maybe thinking to himself that Norman's gone, Derek can't drive, by the way. This is scary as hell. So then the temperature drops inside the car, like plummets, like Sixth Sense style.
That's when you know.
That's when you know they're near. And then they feel a presence in the car. Derek feels a presence trying to take control of the wheel. He thinks to like try and crash the car. I think it was maybe a guardian angel trying to sort out Derek's driving. These are just theories, but again, I'm not holding out a lot of hope for Derek's driving abilities. It's probably a BMW. I like BMWs. I might have mentioned them before a few times on this show. So, this thing is in the car trying to take control of it. They then feel like they can't breathe, like they're suffocating, so they put the windows down to try and get some air in the car, but apparently that nothing really helps. But from outside, they can hear the shrieking and the screaming and the cackling. I mean, this is all pretty creepy on face value. And at this point, Big Deke goes, I think I'll stop the car. No. You should have done that ages ago, or just not right now when you can still hear all the shrieking and cackling going on outside. That's not the moment to stop. Even in horror films, they don't do that. It's like, boom, good time to stop. I don't think so. So he stops the car. Then the car starts getting battered about like the bonus level of Street Fighter 2, right? And then they jump out the car and it all stops, all goes quiet. So they get back in the car and it starts happening again. So they basically just puts a foot down and all these figures start appearing for the side of the roads again. And this time he doesn't try to avoid them. He just plows right through. And again, they just keep disappearing. And he just keeps the foot down until he gets back to Annan. Later on, he's telling the story to guys that have been there for like a good number of years, people that had fought in the war and stuff. And as he was telling them the stories, they were telling him that there was links in the area to witchcraft and stuff like that, which is what I'd tell somebody if they were telling me a batshit story like that. But that's basically their story. One thing I would note is the fact that not once does it say that Norman's seen anything, and it was the year 1963, and he was 22. I think he was on acid.
Well, we have a question here from Tyferon. Says this was 60s, right? The 60s. What were the drink laws for driving like that in that period?
Probably non-existent.
Yeah, because back then you could until someone someone ruined it.
I've seen a drink driving campaign for the 70s, like an old poster that they used to put up in pubs, and it was a picture of 4 empty pint glasses and a question mark on the 5th one saying, "Do you really need that 5th pint?"
Class. Claire Crosby says, we live just along from Boleskin House, Alistair Crowley's old haunt. No pun intended.
Alistair Crowley. Is that a vampire or something?
Yeah.
Alistair Crowley.
Yeah,
that's
the
right.
Scottish vampire did. That's
Mm-hmm.
cool. That's very cool.
Maybe that's one we
That's
can look
something.
into.
That's something we should look into. We need to look into the witches as well that we talked about last time. See, on that, when you're talking about, when you said about when he's talking to the guys in the pub and he's telling them these stories, and they say that there was links to witchcraft in the area. That popped up a few times in things I found, and then I couldn't find hee-haw about it. Absolutely nothing, right? And then I found one of the stories I came across mentioned that there was a theory kicking about in the 70s and 80s that it was actually like a gateway to hell was not far from Annan, which, by the way, we should actually mention where the A75 is, because we haven't. Dumfries, but basically runs from Annan to where is it?
Gretna, isn't it?
Well, Crotherstown, so pretty much just outside Gretna. But so basically they claimed it to be a gateway to hell, which obviously sparks a load of scaremongering and fear and stuff within the population. But again, I can't find anything on it at all.
I think it might just be some anti-English rhetoric, because that's how you get to England.
Yeah, basically that
it's a gateway to hell. It's just England, mate.
West Bay coast down, aye.
Typheron says Crowley was an English occultist, basically started the modern occultist movement.
We need to know a vampire then.
So who's the Scottish vampire guy?
The Menzies guy for Falthouse.
Is that who it is?
I remember that guy. That was like in the 2000s, wasn't it? Or
that was
late
2006. That I believe.
Aye.
Oh, there's an old one. I'm pretty sure it was in Glasgow. Like an old one.
Well, it may be in my book that we're going to look at later.
Where the kids went kicking about looking for this. I don't know if it was Glasgow or anybody, but basically the kids were kicking about with weapons looking for this vampire. Don't know. Can't remember where that is. Need to find that out.
Monster Squad.
It's a weird,
terrible film.
it's a weird kind of thing. I don't know.
Yeah, Typheron says Alan Menzies killed his best friend and 8 bits of his brain. Well, that was the town across from where I live.
That's a good way to get mad cow disease.
Wow, so you're quite local then. Quite local.
Nice.
Yeah, I remember that was everywhere when that happened. All over the newspapers and everything. Very, very close to where we are, but there's not really much you could go and see about that. And I think it's still quite raw as well, isn't it?
It's a very recent thing.
I think he's serving time in Carstairs.
He's dead. He was meant to, but he died. But I believe he killed himself very soon after.
Beforehand, yeah, I'm pretty sure he got done before.
I thought he was in. I thought he was in Carstairs.
Nah. He might have been at some point. No.
Wonder if they'd ever let us in there to do an interview with somebody.
Hey, how cool would that be? They let Piers Morgan in. We're sounder than he is.
I know. 90% of the population hate him.
You let Piers Morgan in. We're sound. Let us in.
Maybe they're just
much sounder than
off him while he's in
there. Whitburn Academy, a wretched hive of scum and villainy. Sounds like the start of a movie.
Aye. I'm not actually too far from there.
Yeah. It was our school, thanks.
Yeah. I went there as well.
My school. I was a West Calder guy, thank you.
Typheron also says, yes, he killed himself, believed he was being told to do thing by Queen of the Damned from that movie. Next deep dive.
Remember that terrible sequel to Interview with the Vampire?
Yeah.
The Queen of the Damned.
Queen of the Damned, that's an interesting movie.
Yeah. That was Aaliyah. Remember Aaliyah?
Released as a parody to Blade, I think was the idea.
Crazy, right?
Very.
So Dumfries and Galloway is very rich in haunted history, if I'm correct, and that's essentially where the A75 is. So that kind of goes back to when we were talking about how things have to happen, or do they, for something to become haunted. What other stuff did you guys find out from the surrounding area of Dumfries and Galloway?
Well, to be fair, just before we do that, I've got a couple of stories about the road itself.
Let's go.
I managed to pick up a couple more. It came from a thread on Reddit, actually, of basically somebody was talking about staying in the hotel or staying in a cottage not far from the road, and then it kind of just spiraled from there. But the first one was to do, and they're all kind of the same running theme. One of them involved a woman named Donna Maxwell. Same sort of idea, was driving down the road late at night and had an elder or a sort of mid-40s guy run onto the road. She could tell the colour of his clothing, red t-shirt, black trousers. You could tell roughly what age he was. So she could see, discerning features. But just as the car was about to hit him, just vanished. And then something similar as well.
There's a theme.
Basically, there is a theme. So basically, there's another one with a guy, a couple, Garson and Monica Miller, were driving near Annan. Same idea, but they had quite an interesting story where they were driving along, just getting to sort of twilight stage where it's kind of dark, kind of not, and they seen a guy walking down the center of the road towards them with a kind of Hessian bag over his head, with his arms outstretched, with like holding rags, and they could hear like this sort of cries and screams coming for this guy. And no matter where they went on the road, he kind of moved to be in line. And then again, the closer they got, he just vanished. So there is there's a proper stylistics. Either it's really discerning story tales that are all kind of linked together, but there is a sort of a recurring theme with all of these. And then the final one that's quite interesting involved initially a dude called Jim Carlisle, driving near Dornoch, not far from Annan, driving along. Same sort of idea, driving along. Had an old lady standing on the side of the road. And then as he kept going, seen her again, but this time in the middle of the road, about to hit her. And she had a full, fancy dress on and all these things, like, again, could tell features. And again, he spent, forever telling the stories afterwards. That the closer they got, the more she just disappeared. And it came to a point that 45 years later, a woman named Margaret Ching experienced the exact same thing at the same section of the road with the same woman. She could see her initially, then seen her again, and just as she got in front of the car, she vanished. So there does seem to be definitely something to do with either there's somebody kicking about the A75 that is unbelievably good with a hologram, or there actually is something dodgy going on there. And also, to be fair, one of the things that I'd heard or read about was the potential for UFO sightings and stuff as well. Didn't find a single one though.
No,
but that's the thing. But it's when we were talking earlier on, it's quoted to be the road to hell and all these things, but there's no story behind that.
Anywhere is a potential UFO hotspot. Anywhere you can see sky.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Except the ironic part of the A75 is most of it's surrounded by forest, so you can't see the sky.
So I don't know. I'm very. We've done a few of these now, and this so far it's still a close second to the Overtown Bridge for being easy to explain away.
This one I can't really not explain, but I also can't set it as entirely paranormal.
It just sounds like stories. It just sounds like stories to me.
I think what's missing is really like there's so many different paranormal happenings that have some kind of CCTV, albeit the footage is always dodgy. There's always something that makes you go, "Whoa, did you see that?" With this, again, it is just stories.
I've not seen any dash cam footage of this or anything like that.
And you know what? Can I just say this, right? So usually when you see things, and I'm just going to use an example here of something that went viral recently, and it was a Scottish guy who obviously will not use the words so we didn't get burst on YouTube as always, right? But I'm waiting to see the paranormal video of a Scottish guy, right, with the said guy chasing them with a bag on his head, going, oh, and the guy going, oh, oh, no, the day, mate. You're not haunting me, right?
What are you doing on this road anyway?
Right? Because it happened recently with a bloody killer whale, right? Now, I'm waiting to see that video, but with a haunted ghost. How hilarious would that be? Oh,
See, the thing is, right?
Ghosty prick.
Aye. Oh man, I absolutely love that video. No, the thing is, I've spent quite a lot of time in previous jobs in really like proper rural places with nothing around, like just farms. And it's a very, very common thing for locals to just walk from town to town in the pitch black, on the road, in the dark, back and forward for the pub. It's just a completely normal thing.
Yeah.
So, you know, I don't know if any of these people that we've spoken about, whatever, I mean, some of the truckers aren't really going to be local. They're going to be traveling through. But if you're not a local and you're traveling through an area and all of a sudden you see a guy on the road, you're going to crap yourself either way.
With a sack on his head. Well, can I just, for reference, one of the most famous Scottish stories of a guy being pished on his way home and coming up.
Tam O'Shanter.
With a story, right, is Tam O'Shanter by Robbie Burns. So he was absolutely mortal and believed that a bunch of witches were chasing him home and ripped the tail off his horse. But I think it's kind of been debunked that it was never the case. It was just a good story because he was pished. Yeah. So why can't that happen again, especially in Scotland, where we like a good knees up, eh, J-Mac?
We like a good knees up. We love a good yarn as well. We like to spin a wee story.
And I think, and you know what? See, back in the 60s and maybe even long beforehand, right? There were no smartphones. There were not a lot of stuff to entertain yourself. So what would you do after walking in the fog, right? Dark night, just to get in there? You gather around, buy me a drink and I'll tell you this. And everybody's like, whoa, what's happening? Get this guy.
I just got hit in the face with a fucking massive chicken.
Right.
Well, to be fair, what's the opening sequence for American Werewolf in London?
Two guys strolling through the moors.
Walking through the moors. It's dark, it's eerie, it's the perfect discernible ghost story.
But they actually get munched by a big wolf, though.
Aye, yeah, they do. Aye, but there could be a giant chicken kicking about the A75. We don't know.
Right, somebody should replace the howl in American Werewolf with a
See, Matthew, how good he was sound.
I think we could definitely illustrate that.
An American chicken in Yorkshire.
Are we going with it? We believe there's some credence to this. Would you camp out on the side of the road?
Absolutely. Probably not, because there'll be a lot of folk that drive like Derek.
Do you know what? I actually would.
Another thing that goes on in rural communities is drink driving is pretty much all right. There's no huge police presence. There doesn't have to be. So I think there's a lot of drink driving that goes on country roads. And for that reason, I don't think I'd ever camp at the side of one.
Come on, I
would.
I definitely would.
Even if none of it's true, I would want to be that guy. Because if I put my hair down and run at a car that's driving,
you are the ghost.
They will talk about this for years. So either I'm going there and I'll find out if it's true, or if it's not true, I'm gonna bump up the legend.
The worst part is this, though, right? You describe yourself as just a guy with long hair, right? But then when they get away and they embellish it a wee bit, they're like, "Oh, he had no eyes."
Exactly.
He was drawn. He had hairless twigs. Right? And you're like, oh, come here.
He was 8'4" and built like the gable end of a crisp.
We're gonna get a sample here. Oh, here we go, mate. Do you know what you got? You got the vibe going on right now.
The Ring.
Michael Myers and Rob Zombie's Halloween 2.
If I run at somebody like that, that's going to be outstanding.
Run something like that and make chicken noises.
Kira Shanta. Here, I'll let you read this one, J-Mac.
This is from I'm assuming we're saying this name right because he's never corrected you, Tyferan. As a side note, the Ghostbusters of Glasgow and Scotland are going to be in Dumfries en masse tomorrow for the local Comic-Con. Maybe they will find something driving along the road. There we go.
And there you go.
Having had to walk a bunch of country roads on a regular basis, you get lots of young drivers shouting at you and occasionally lobbing stuff at you as they go past. Yeah, a couple of fannies. Remember that?
Can confirm that's a true story. That happens, yes.
Have you got a Myers mask?
I do, yeah.
Oh, get it on.
Is that a good one? Is that a good
I've
one?
got a mask.
It's the only thing is I bought mine specifically because I had long hair. It doesn't have like a top, so I can put my hair over it.
Oh, mate. Sure.
Oh, let's see then. Come on.
Absolutely
Just for the viewers and me.
For anybody listening at home, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, this is why you tune in live to our
Ghost had a 4-litre
Facebook.
pint glass. Mate, a pint glass has got a pint in it. You can't get a 4-litre pint glass. A pint's a pint. Excuse me. Wonder what's in that guitar bag. Probably a guitar, eh?
Yeah, maybe. So this is
I'm coming.
for me.
Mate, you should have just been putting the mask on.
Syrian walked right into that one. What? No way,
That's
mate.
pretty eerie, like.
Mate. That's
Right,
it.
We're taking that to the A75.
Yes, Matthew, man. Get on that, mate. I'm snapping that. Bloody hell.
That's my nightmare sorted for the next 10 years.
Bloody hell. And it's not a bad mask either.
Wait, we're just assuming that's still Kieran.
No, it's actually his Mrs. Michaela. I'm only kidding.
Bloody hot under there.
It is roasting. Michaela says it's all fun and games when you expect it. Different story when he's waiting for you with the light off in the room. So he's got history of this stuff, eh? Where were you on the night of the 75 and blah blah blah?
1962.
Did. And that's always a scary thing for me when people say that there is a heaven or there's not, right? And then they go like this. Mind that time before you were born, and you're like, no. That's what happens when you're dead. No.
There has to be something. There has to be
Apart
something.
for the kids that can actually tell you everything, and then they go and look it up, and it turns out it's inch perfect.
Oh, mate. Before we wrap this show up, tell us.
No, not me. I'm not.
No,
But,
give us more of that. They'll leave us on that. Give us more.
So there's I know of a story, and it was to do with a kid from Minnesota, I think. And basically, he was at school telling stories, blah blah blah, and his teacher was like, "It's a bit weird." Get home, got on the phone to his mum's, like, "Look, by the way, just so you know, your kid's kind of talking about this." So the mum kind of goes home, picks up the kid, talks to the kid, and the kid's like, "No, before I was me, I was this guy, and I did that, and that's where I lived, and this is how I died." So this woman and her husband are a bit like, it's a bit bizarre. So they don't think anything of it, and then a wee while later, the guy's like, "Look, I've been doing some digging, and he's right. Like, this guy was here, and he died there, and whatever." And it was so obscure. It was like a completely different part of the country, whatever. There was like basically no way that this kid could have known this information. And it's not the first time that has happened. That there are quite a few stories of kids that know their previous life. Whether they've had 9 or not, I don't know. But
I asked my son one time. I'd been watching a video on YouTube. I've definitely told you this before, Kevin. I was watching a video on YouTube about a wee boy in Scotland who had memories of his previous life on the Isle of Barra in the north of Scotland. And I just, for a laugh, asked my son, who was about 3 at the time. I just asked him. I said, "Murray," I said, "do you remember who you were before you were Murray?" Thinking he'd just say no, and that'd be the end of it. And he went, "Yep." I was like, and I was like, "Right." I said, "Who were you?" And he said, "I was an old man." I was like, "You were an old man?" He said, "Yeah, I was an old man." I lived in. Then he just said, I lived in London. And I was like, right. I said, did you live by yourself or did you live with somebody else? He went, just by myself. I said, and what happened? He said, I got not well. At this point, I'm like, what the fuck? He's like, I got not well. Was it right? He said, I got not well, and then I heard a nee-naw noise, and then I was here with you and mummy. Aye.
That
Genuine. True story, by the way.
That's amazing.
It still freaks me out to this day. I asked him about it like within the last 3 years ago. I asked him about it, and he couldn't remember. So it was a funky one. If anybody's got stories of kids creeping you the fuck out, let us know in the comments.
Absolutely.
Yeah. See, Matthewman says, if you say A75 in the 5 times, a big ass ghostly chicken will appear behind you and prick the shit out of you. Cocky man.
Oh,
man. That's brilliant. Man. God, that's. I think there's something to these creepy kids. We could maybe do an episode on creepy kids. Have you ever heard of these kids that chap the door with the wee girls and
the
boys?
Black-eyed children.
Black-eyed. Mate, what is that? What is that?
There's stories of that all over the world. Everywhere.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of. In fact, I remember watching a film with Nicolas Cage in it that had similar things to that. It might have been that movie Next, or was it Next? Oh, I can't remember.
No,
but I'm
was
sure
the Next.
God, no. What was the one where there was a big plane crash in it?
Knowing.
I'm sure there was like black-eyed things in that.
But they weren't the same. Those were like aliens.
No,
spoiler alert.
Proper black.
That's the end of that one.
No, they're proper like black-eyed children all over the UK. Like,
and what's it? They chap your door, eh? They just chap your door. Mm-hmm. And if you go out there, I don't know. I don't think I've heard of what happens if you go out there. Probably get burst or something. But most folks didn't go out there.
You become one. I don't know. It's either probably something to do. Whether there's actually something to these stories, I don't know. The thing about stories is they all have to come from something. Maybe that, it doesn't mean that it's not a logical explanation. Like all the big sea serpents and stuff out at sea usually end up becoming from sturgeon or obscenely big fish. Is there actually something to do with this road? It's a possibility. But there's not enough, given how much evidence there is, or how many correlated stories there are with buildings, castles, specific areas, forests and stuff. There doesn't seem to be enough for it to be Scotland's most haunted road, and yet it's not a lot packed into it.
I find that outdoor spaces, it's always harder to find info on them. You find that when the information you're looking at is about, like you said, a castle or a kind of stately home or mansion, whatever. Yeah, these places have a lot more people kicking about all the time, and they swap stories, and I think it kind of adds fuel to the fire as well. But I mean, how many people, like Stephen King, for example, stayed in a hotel, and because of the experiences he had in the hotel, decided to write
1408. 1408.
The Shining.
Oh, and 1408.
And 1408. He needs to stop staying in hotels.
Although I did actually hear a really interesting thing about him, is the fact that so many people think that there's something wrong with the electromagnetic fields that surround most of Maine, which is where he lives.
Yeah.
Basically, Bangor, Maine is where most of the things happen. In the village, apparently, where he lives, there's some weird electromagnetic thing, and I think that's where most of his mental ideas. Although he's written that much scary stuff over the years, he now can't sleep in the dark. He has to have a light on all the time.
Fucking hell. He also can't. He also can't write an ending worth a toss.
No, I've read a lot of his books. I absolutely love him, and you're still correct.
The thing is with his stories is that the rest of the story is that good that you forgive the bad ending, and that's very rare. Normally, a bad ending will ruin a movie, ruin a book, but with his, you just kind of accept it, and it's quite endearing.
I think that's Matthew. I think that's quite partial to most writers. It's how you get the creative juices flowing.
Aye, they always sit there with a wee can of cola.
Aye, obviously.
I've got writer's block. No, I've not.
Pepsi doesn't cut it these days.
God dang. So what I'm going to introduce, by the way, I'm going to introduce this for the next paranormal part. I'm going to come up with 3 options, and it's basically something like the parameter, whether we think it's credible, not really credible, and just absolute,
so like a ranking,
absolute mink pish.
A mink pish, right? So I'm going to come up with wee visuals for that next paranormal part.
What, mink pish?
Hi, right, and we'll decide whether or not we think the story has any validity. I'm really looking forward to us experiencing some stuff. That way we can say, hey, you know what? I read the story and see when I was there, fucking big chicken came out. Fucking whoa. Right, hit me right in the face. But here's the funny thing. Couldn't you see it?
Here's the funny thing. It was one of the cooking the bag ones.
Living in hell, if I remember correctly.
But I would say on the parameter that sits mid for me, because there's not enough evidence. There's not enough variant stories.
There's not enough evidence for or against it. So
but there's not enough to say that it's a load of crap either. Enough people have seen the same kind of thing without knowing each other, and that for me is when you're like,
with the same sort of storylines as well. It's not as if they're so far fetched, like yeah.
And granted,
of all the things you're going to make up a story about, a road isn't one of them.
Yeah, I always think that.
If you live next to a big manor house or whatever, you'd be like, oh, by the way, but it's a road, it's not something you would initially think of.
No, absolutely. So I say this one sits mid.
I'll go. It could be credible, but I think that there either needs to be more investigation done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Aye.
Absolutely. And I
think we're all in agreement on that one.
Of course, if anyone listening to this podcast or watching at home, hello. If you guys have had any experiences on any roads or even just experiences, we want to hear from you. Head to jibberjabberpodcast.com, or you can alternatively email us at jibberjabberscotland@gmail.com, or find us on all our social media platforms, which is basically every social media platform that exists. Just type in Jibber Jabber Podcast, hit the follow button, smash us a wee message, let us know the stuff that's going on in your life that's paranormal. And if you've got any accompanying pictures or videos, send them in. We could even have you on to chat for 15 to 20 minutes. We'll chat to you about it, get your story heard, and absolutely creep us out. We've got another comment here. Stephen Dobson says the road between Harthill and Falthouse is supposed to be haunted by a priest who drowned up there somewhere. I know
the road.
But see, there's a reason behind that though. If that's the case, there's a reason, because obviously there's a priest that drowned.
Right.
There's no reasoning behind this 75 stuff. So it's, don't know.
I know the story, and I know actually the story quickly before we end the show. If you guys are up for hearing it, I know the story of that drowned priest. So the priest fell in the loch, right? And what happened was a boat came along and says, "Here, I'll help you out." And the priest's like, "No, I'm all right. I'm waiting for God. Right? God's going to save me." He's like, "Okay then. Right, see ya." Went away. Then another boat came along and was like, "Mate, you're drowning. Here, I'll help you." He's like, "No, I'm waiting on God. I'll be fine." He's like, "You sure? You're going to die?" "No, I'll be fine." On the way, right? He's away. Right? Third boat comes along. The priest drowns and dies, which is the priest we're talking about. Priest then gets to heaven and is like, "God, what the hell? I was waiting the whole time for you to save me." He's like, "I sent you 3 boats, you prick."
I actually know that one.
a nice
It's a good one. Put it this way, there's a lot worse ways to end a show.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's been class. I've really enjoyed it, guys. Next episode, we're going to do something with a bit more meat, something that makes everybody watching at home go, "Nah, I'm out of here," because it's that terrifying, right? Let's do it. And if any of you guys at home want us to cover something that's just absolutely terrifying, there's enough source material, let us know. I mean, you know where to find us, so do so.
Petrol prices.
Hey, Yeah. And if you've enjoyed this episode, share it with your pals. Leave us a review on any podcasting platform, Facebook. You can even leave us a comment. Let us know what you do like. Let us know what you don't like. We do this show for you guys, so help us help you. And last comment here from Stephen Thompson: bring on Wee Man. I'm a vet with this shit. Bring on Wee Man. Who's Wee Man?
It said bring it on, Wee Man.
All right. Dafty, bring it on, Wee Man. Yeah. Stego is absolutely a vet with this stuff. But on that note, guys, it's been an absolute pleasure paranormal pattern with you again tonight. I'm looking forward to the next one. Guys, anything you'd like to say in closing?
Just keep watching and we'll keep making.
Absolutely. Can only promise that it'll get better, and it's just going to keep growing. That's the thing.
Absolutely. And we're going to get out there and we're going to see stuff ourselves. We're going to film it very, very soon. Isn't that right, guys?
That is right.
So on that note, guys, have a smashing evening. Have a great weekend. And we'll see you guys very soon for some more Paranormal Patter. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Take it easy.
Thank you for listening to Paranormal Pattern with Kev, J-Mac and Kieran in association with Jibber Jabber Podcast. You can watch future episodes live on Facebook Live and on YouTube. You can also catch up on our previous episodes on Apple Podcasts, Audible, Spotify and any available podcast database. Don't forget to check out our website at www.jibberjabberpodcast.com. Good night and sleep tight.
This episode was sponsored by Minkpish.